Welcome back to the Impact Show with your host Samuel I Can Win Akinwin. It's a great pleasure to be here with you guys today. Guys, today has been so hectic, so busy, but we made it. We made it to the show, viewings earlier on today, and a whole bunch of other things. But guys, I am glad to be back. I hope you're glad to be back as well. Let me know in the comments if you're glad to be back at the Impact Show. If you're here, again, I've already seen comments from Yogesh in the chat saying hi everyone. So a great big hi to you, Yogesh. Now guys, if you can hear me perfectly, just let me know in the chat. Samuel, I can hear you. And if you cannot hear me, then equally let me know in the chat. It will be extremely helpful to know if you guys can hear me as we jump into tonight's show and get straight into it. 100% value packed. Without further ado, I just want to get in and give you guys the value. So I hope you guys have realized that this has been an extremely busy week, an extremely eventful week, both in terms of property news and a whole bunch of other things as well. There's a few things I'm going to be sharing with you guys tonight as it pertains to property news, but we'll get to that later on in the show. And then side by side with that, we've got quite a few questions that have come in through means of one of the Facebook groups, the social media groups that we have to basically share with you guys as well. So as I usually encourage you to do, if you're just tuning in for the first time, hit like, let us know how you guys are doing. Let the YouTube world know as well how you're finding this content so that we can basically continue to encourage YouTube to push this content to other people who will be able to get value from the content also. So I'm ready to jump in. I've got Yogesh saying, hi, how are you? Yogesh, we are doing good. I'm doing good. I believe the team's doing good today. So you might see some of them interacting in the chat later on. And yes, you guys can hear me. That's absolutely fantastic. So again, thank you ever so much for the comments coming through. We appreciate you guys massively. We appreciate you guys as a community massively. Now, first thing I want to say to you guys is a great big thank you. Okay, that's the first thing I want to say to you guys. All right. This is episode 19 of the Impact Show. We are now on our 19th episode, and I want to share something with you that I thought about earlier on today, and it really touched me. And it's something simple. It's not something complicated. It's something fairly simple, but this is what it was. Last week, episode 18 on the show, I made a statement, and what I said is, guys, if you haven't hit subscribe, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, why don't you hit subscribe and help us hit 250 subscribers? And I shared we're nearly there. We're so close to it. We were basically at the brink of 250 subscribers. And the funniest thing is, it hasn't even been 7 days. And I just want to express some real appreciation to the whole community. Those people who I know from the property world, those people I know from just the YouTube world, any person who's watching this content, even if you're not watching this live, if you're watching this on a replay, I just really want to say thank you to you for contributing to our journey here on YouTube, for contributing to helping us move forward on YouTube and let more people using YouTube understand and know that we're here and we're here to help people. We hit 250 subscribers earlier on in the week, and I was just really appreciative. I was just thankful and grateful. I think gratitude is something we all need more of, but I was very, very grateful to be able to have hit that milestone, especially when, you know, just days before I had said on the actual stream, guys, we're nearly at 250 subscribers. Now, I want to put it out there. I know it's big, I know it's bold, but there's nothing wrong with having big and bold goals, I don't think anyway. So I'll put it out there to the community. Guys, I want us to hit 1,000 subscribers, okay? So that is times in where we're at right now by 4. That is an increase, a threefold increase from where we are right now. And I know we can do it. I know we can do it as a community, and I know there's over 1,000. There's way more than 1,000 people that need to hear the stuff we're sharing here on a week in and week out basis. So what I want to do is I want you guys to help me to do that, okay? So there's several ways you can help me to do that. I'm going to go into them very quickly before we go on a bit more, all right? The first thing I want you guys to do to help me do that is I want you to hit like on the video, okay? You know what you're in for, okay? You know we're going to have content upon content upon content today. You know we're going to have phone calls being answered today. You know we're going to have value upon value today. That's what we do on the show. we add value to people in an extensive way. So if you already know we're going to give you value today, I want you to hit the like button. The second thing I want you to do to help us move forward to 1,000 subscribers is, if you haven't hit subscribe yourself, hit subscribe. Just hit the button. Okay, hit subscribe, become a member, become a part of our community in this Facebook world. Okay, now the next thing I want you to do after you've hit subscribe, after you've hit like, I want you to share the video. All right, there's usually an arrow, a weird shaped arrow somewhere on the screen. Okay, hit share, and YouTube is just going to say, do you want to share this with your community? And just tell YouTube, yeah, I want YouTube and the rest of the people I know to be able to get the value that comes from the Impact Show, because this is about sharing information. It's about passing information on. It's about allowing and helping the information to spread as quickly as the information can, so we can be more astute as we invest in our property journey. So guys, I want you to do that with me, okay? I want you to do that with me. Can you help me do that? All right, let me know in the chat if you can help me do that. Let me know in the chat if you're willing to support this channel to go from where we are right now, 250 subscribers plus, I think we're on 251 right now, okay, to 1,000 subscribers, okay? And the reason we want to go to 1,000 subscribers is because we want to share what's going on in the property world with more people. We want more people equipped in their property investing journey. We want more people not falling into the pitfalls that are around. So, given the welcome, shared our thank you to you as a great community for the 250 subscribers. Now I'm going to do what I usually do week in, week out, just for the sake of making sure we cross the T's and dot the I's. I'm going to read our disclaimer, and the disclaimer states that all information provided and results that are given are generally exemplary unless said otherwise. Each person's results may vary or differ. Results are based on consistent strategies, and we advise that you always seek legal and financial advice from a qualified professional if you choose to take on board any of the information that we're sharing with you. So now that the disclaimer is done, now that the welcome is done, now that the thank you for you lovely people subscribing and being a part of our community is also done. And listen, if you're hitting subscribe, you might as well press the notification bell so that you're up to date, so that 30 minutes before we go live, YouTube lets you know. So that if you don't get our emails, or you don't get, the notifications in a WhatsApp group or anything like that, if you're not being informed, YouTube will let you know. Okay, so let's stay informed. So first thing we want to do on the show tonight, as we jump straight in, okay? And again, thank you to all you guys contributing in the comments. We love you guys. If you guys didn't contribute in the comments, we wouldn't have what we have. So thank you for being such an integral part of our show. And let's just turn the comments into its own community. That's what we want to do. We want the comments to be its own community. We want people in the comments to be sharing the information with each other as well, okay? So like, subscribe, and help people in the comments as well. So without further ado, let's jump deeper in. We're going to jump into a few questions we received via Facebook. Okay, so over on our Facebook group, and anyone who's interested in our Facebook group, in the description of this video, in the description of most of our videos, if not all of our videos, are all the information you need. So if you need more information, about what we're doing, about the webinars we run on Mondays, about the Facebook group that we've got with a massive community in there. Our Facebook group community is actually larger. It's close to double the size of our YouTube subscribers, okay? So if you want to be in a Facebook community where there's value, jump into our Facebook group, all right? Link in the description. So in our Facebook group, we put it out this week that from now on, each week, we're going to be answering questions about any property topic, and we just put up the topic each week, and then people throw their questions in. So what I've done is I've selected 3 of the questions, okay, which I believe are going to help us to move forward in tonight's show. And these questions have come from you guys. They've come from the community, whether it's the Facebook community or the YouTube community. So we're going to start with the first question, which was recently asked in the group, okay? So I hope you guys are ready. If you're ready for tonight's show, give me some fire. Write in the comments, I'm ready. I'm ready. Let me know. If you're ready for tonight's show, write in the comments, I'm ready for tonight's show. Let me know in the comments if you are ready to go for tonight's show. I'm ready. You know I'm ready. But let me know in the comments if you are ready. So without further ado, let's see the first question that came in on the Facebook group. So this is the first question. This is from Yemisi. Yemisi says, how do you source and close a good property deal? How do you source and close a good property deal? So the first thing I'm going to share in order to answer this question, because I want to answer this question in an expansive nature. I don't want this to be just a little snippet answer. So the first part of the question, how do you source a good property deal? And the answer to that for me is by using what I call creative property sourcing. So any person who's seen me anywhere in the country where I've been invited to present, I've been invited to present all over the country. I speak internationally. Most people know that. But yeah, wherever it's been when I've, spoken in Swansea, wherever I've spoken in London, like a lot of the meetings in London, they invite me to present. And one of the things I speak about, one of my presentations, I actually did this presentation this week, Wednesday, to a property group in Milton Keynes. And the presentation title was Property Sourcing 202. And one of the things I start with in that presentation is sharing that I believe creative property sourcing has two central tenets, okay? And those two central tenets are that you are looking at deals that are off market. That's what we call deals which are not from Rightmove. They're not from Zoopla. They're not from auction houses. They're off market opportunities. Then the second thing that I usually share with people outside of the fact that we're talking about off-market opportunities is that we're talking about direct to vendor. And by direct to vendor, what we mean is you're dealing directly with the person who's selling the property. You're not dealing through a middleman, through a gatekeeper, through an estate agent, or anything else of that sort. So for us, that's really the key. That's really the key. When you're looking at sourcing great deals, you want to use that creative property sourcing as the approach. So in order to source properties creatively, you have to make sure that effectively you must be doing direct marketing campaigns. Because if you're not doing direct marketing campaigns, how else are you going to find property opportunities? If you're not directly marketing to human beings, letting them know that you can help them solve property problems, you can help them move forward in their property journey, then how else will you be able to find deals which are not with estate agents, not in windows of estate agents, not on Rightmove, not on Zoopla, not on online portals, okay? So they're the two keys, Yemisi, and for everybody on the community. Like the first key is you want to be finding offline opportunities that are off market. The second thing is you want to be finding opportunities which are direct to vendor. So you're dealing directly with the seller of the property in order to help them solve a particular problem that they have. Now, some people say, work with motivated sellers. I think that helps. Some people say, work with distressed sellers. There's all sorts of terms that people have used throughout, the last 2 decades, 3 decades to kind of deem what they're talking about in this regard. But the key is you want to be working directly with individuals and you want to be working with off-market opportunities, because if the opportunity is off-market, it radically increases your ability to negotiate. So how do you source? That's the first part. The second part is and close a good deal. So in terms of closing a good deal, and again, this is going to help more than Yemisi, this is going to help the whole community. If you're trying to close a good property deal, effectively what you really want to be doing is having a clear understanding of what you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to achieve, for example, cash flow out of a particular transaction, then you need to know the amount you can buy that property for, so that you will know the amount you're going to be paying a mortgage on that property, so that you'll equally know the amount that you're going to have to pay a deposit on that property, so you can work backwards and start to work out, your return on investment. So I would say use the ROI, use the return on investment as a metric, Yemisi and everyone else. And basically, if you're using return on investment as a metric, you'll be able to start working backwards to work out what actually a great deal is, so you can get that deal sourced and closed. Okay, so that's the answer to Yemisi's question. Yemisi, thank you for that question. It's absolutely fantastic question, and it's great to have your question on. All right, now we've got the second question from Suzanne, and interestingly enough, Suzanne's someone who reached out to me recently, so that is really great. So Suzanne's written what I think is another phenomenal question. Suzanne's question says, what does a good deal look like, okay? Now, this one, if I'm going to be totally transparent with you, a good deal can look like multiple different things. There's many different definitions or descriptions of a good deal. But what I want to say to you, for this is not only for Suzanne, but those of you who are watching, is that in order for you to find a good deal, you have to first know what your personal investment criteria is. For many people, their personal investment criteria is, I want to buy a second home, or I wish I had a third house, or, if only I could buy another property. Now, the reality is, if that is the expanse of your property investing definition for what a good deal is for you, then, you could buy a property which is losing money every week, every month, and still be happy because you got another property. And, that's not really the community of people that we're out here to try and support. We're out here to try and support people who want to make positive investments which are generating positive cash flow, bringing back great returns. So in order for you to get great returns, and in certain cases supercharge those returns, you really need to be the kind of person who knows what a good deal is for you. And that is the key phrase. What is a good deal for you? What are you looking for? Some people are looking for cash flow. Some people are looking for equity stakes. Some people are looking for profit. Some people are looking for all three. So you have to get to a place where you understand what you're looking for, so you can then map out what is a good deal for you. Now, for me, at this stage of my business, I like looking at HMO properties. So that's properties which are houses of multiple occupation. I like taking on those properties in one of two ways. One, which is a straight purchase acquisition. The second is through means of rent to rent as a strategy. Now, the reason I like rent to rent as a strategy is because it's a very flexible strategy. It allows you to get in, allows you to get out. But at the same time, the reason I like purchasing and acquisition is because it allows me and my investor partners to generate more income over a longer term, because we don't have to worry if a landlord after 5 years says, oh, you know what, I don't want to continue this particular agreement or contract. So I would encourage you to get to a place where you start looking at what a good deal is for you. So now I've defined what I like looking at, HMOs, and also the two kind of approaches or strategies I like to employ in order to acquire these HMOs. The next thing for me to think about is, what do I actually say is a good HMO deal? Now, I've got two criteria, okay, in terms of my numbers, okay, if I put it that way, because most people are going to be thinking from a numbers perspective. So I have two criteria as it pertains to numbers. The first criteria is when we're buying. If we're buying a HMO, I am interested in getting a minimum of 15% return on what we invest as cash. 15% return on investment minimum. Now, if we don't hit 15%, if we're at 14.9, if we're at 13.8, if we're anywhere under 15% return on investment, then we would effectively be selling that deal to somebody else. We'd be passing it on to somebody else. We wouldn't keep that deal for ourselves. But if we're 15% plus return on investment, then that's a deal that we will probably take for ourselves to add to our portfolio. So that's for acquisition. That's the investment threshold that we apply for acquisition. Then the next thing is for rent to rent management. What is our threshold for that? And the threshold that we've got for that right now is a 300% return on investment. So what that basically means is, if you put £5,000 into acquiring a rent to rent HMO, you want to be generating in the region of £1,250 every single month. So what that means is, by the end of 12 months, the end of your first year, you would have generated £15,000 from the rent alone, but you would have invested £5,000 up front. So a £5,000 investment and roughly a £15,000 return over a 12-month period, that is a 300% return on investment. And when we're looking at rent to rents now, HMOs now, that's effectively the threshold we've got. So that's what we're interested in. But again, I'd like to know from you guys. Let us know in the chat, whether it's the live chat or the comments if you're watching this when it's not live. What is your investment threshold? Do you have an investment threshold? Do you invest, as and when you please? Do you invest only when, a deal hits a certain amount of numbers in terms of your calculation, etc., etc.? We would actually really like to know how you guys do it as well, okay? Because it's an open forum. We're all here to share. So let us know what you guys do in that regard as well. All right, now, the last question we're going to take from the Facebook group is question number 3, and it reads, this is from Ola. Thank you, Ola, for your question. Thank you, Suzanne, for your question. And also thank you, Yemisi, for your question. It's fantastic having people just contribute in such a way, especially in our group. So we really appreciate this. So Ola says, how do you know if it's a good deal and how to finance it? Now, I think that's a great question as well. So obviously the good deal part is quite similar to what Suzanne asked. It's very similar to Suzanne's question. What is a good deal? So I'm going to focus more so on the financing aspect, but I will still touch a bit more maybe on what is a good deal. And guys, for those of you who are really trying to find more answers to, Yemisi's first question, how do you source and close a good deal? Or even Suzanne's question, how do you work out what a good deal is? Go get the description of this video and you can see we've got a link to the sourcing blueprint. It's also on the banner right here. Get your free ebook, the sourcing blueprint. Those of you who haven't read the sourcing blueprint, you can go to that link, www.sourcingblueprint.com, and get your free ebook. That ebook will break down the structure of how to source property deals in a very simplistic fashion, nothing complicated. So we don't like complicated here. We like explaining in a simple fashion. So going back to Ola's question, Ola's asked, how do you know if it's a good deal and how do you actually finance it? So two parts to that question. First part, how do I know something's a good deal? Well, I'm looking at the numbers. Okay, I predominantly use the numbers. Most people who know me know I'm a numbers guy. So I want to make sure the numbers line up with what I'm trying to achieve. If the numbers line up with what I'm trying to achieve, then that for me is stage one of confidence. Okay, now if the numbers line up, the next thing is I'm going to ask around. If I'm dealing in an area I haven't dealt with before, or if I'm doing something I haven't done before, like if I'm going into a development at a scale that I haven't done before, then what I will be doing is I'll be relying on other experts' knowledge. It might be my coach, it might be a friend of mine, it could be some principles I've learned in that specific sector or in that specific strategy. But I'm not only going to rely on my own mind. Okay, I don't know everything. I'm not that guy. So because I don't know everything, I'm also going to rely on the words of other people, the advice of other people, the support of other people. And yes, look, guys, yes, I coach people. Yes, I've got lots of coaching clients that I support in their property journey. But guys, I get coached too. I'm always out there making sure that I have a coach who's going to continually support me moving forward. I had a powerful coaching session last week, actually, and I heard something very, very powerful from one of the coaches I was talking to. And the thing that is funny is because, those kind of jewels, the gems that I pick up from coaches, they end up being bestowed upon the coaching clients I work with as well. So my coaching clients, a lot of the time, they get some massive value, not only because I'm coaching them and I'm fairly learned and well studied in terms of what I'm doing, obviously I'm experienced, etc., but side by side with that, because of the fact that I'm still developing myself, I'm still on this continual learning process and journey, I still have to now receive that insight and value from the coaches I work with, and then share it obviously with the coachees I'm working with as well. So the first part of that question, Ola, I think it goes back to what I was mentioning. Basically, what you really want to do is, first and foremost, you want to get to a place where you understand this is a great deal based on the numbers on paper. Then after that, if you're doing something you haven't done before, you're not sure about it, then, kind of side up with coaches, side up with people who have been effective and active in that area, get their feedback, get their advice. Now, the last part of your question, how do you finance it? This depends on what you're trying to do. Now, I'll use the two examples I used earlier about acquisition of HMOs and rent to rent, okay, as a good example. I think they're two really good examples because one is about control and one is about ownership. Now, when we talk about ownership, we generally work with other property investors who have funds, but they don't have time or the energy to actively invest. So what they do is they passively invest with us. So they will put money towards a deal that we are going to go and do. So we'll go out there, we'll do the deal, we'll raise the funds, we get it all done. But what they do is they put their money into that deal and they receive a return on their investment. And the reason they receive a return on their investment is very simply because of the fact that they've invested their funds in terms of that deal. So we might have a deal, for example, where we're going to be doing a development. We might be looking for 150,000, 200,000 to go into the deal. And we'd have an investor or a friend of ours who would say to us, look, Samuel, I'll give you that 200,000 and you can pay me back that 200,000 with a 5% return or with a 4% return over a period of 12 months, 24 months, etc. And then we can take that money, we can put it to better use than that investor might have had it sitting in the bank doing nothing, catching cobwebs and 0.0% interest. And for those of you who was on the live show last week, episode 18, we spoke about the Bank of England according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, they published a strategy paper basically saying that the Bank of England had talks about negative interest rates. So again, last week I kind of gave you guys an insight last week into why more people might be quite interested in taking their money out of the bank over the next couple of years or over the next couple of quarters at least, depending on how things go. So that's the Facebook questions all answered, I believe so. But yeah, in terms of financing, there's other ways as well, Ola. What I can say to you, Ola, is in the Facebook group, keep throwing your questions out there and direct message me if you want even more meat on the bones of that particular question. But like I said, you can use private investors, you can use your own funds, your own savings, you can work with friends and family, and the list goes on and on. Crowdfunding, etc. I could go down a whole load of lists. But again, if you're doing acquisition, that's completely different to when you're doing management. If you're doing management, it's very different because you probably need a lot less money to input into the transaction. And then side by side with that, you probably don't need to return as much to your investors because they're giving you a lot less. But then the interesting thing about that is on management of properties, you may be getting a much higher ROI than on the actual acquisition. So these are things to think about as you move forward in your property journey as well. So I really do hope that answered all of your questions in the Facebook group. Now, side by side with that, what I want us to do is I want us to jump into the news really quickly. The teams let me know that we've got some callers on the line, so we're going to be jumping into our callers fairly shortly. Don't want to keep the callers waiting for too long. But some news came out this week, which I just thought I could not resist but share with you guys. And here is the first piece of news that I wanted to make sure that you guys were able to see, hear, find out about, because I just think this is absolutely phenomenal what is actually happening. Now, we actually sent out the email. I sent out an email earlier today to our community to basically let them know about this particular piece of news and to let them know I'm going to be speaking about this on the show today. And the reason why is because it's so interesting how things happen. Years ago, there was a big fad around service apartments, if I use that terminology. And with that big fad around service apartments, everybody, 3-4 years ago, everybody and their dog was getting into the service apartment business. And I was asked again and again, Samuel, why don't you get into SA? Why don't you get into SA? So our sourcing business, our sourcing company, yes, we sourced service apartments and did sell them on to other people, but we never actually got active in service apartments, managing them ourselves because of the fact that we're based in London, we were operating heavily in London, and we know in London we have the 90-day rule, which we didn't want to break, nor start looking for crafty loopholes to go around. So as a result of that, we never really started to get into service apartments. And over the years, we've seen a lot of changes happen in the property market, but specifically in the service apartment market. Now, I'm going to read this article to you. This is something that was released yesterday, the 21st of August. Guys, this is fresh news, fresh off the press, and it was released on the Letting Agent Today website. And I'm going to just read a short part of it for you. This was written by one of their authors, Graham Norwood, on the 21st of August 2020, and it basically says, headline, blow for Airbnb and short lets in landmark appeal ruling. I'll read a little bit of it, but basically it's about an Oxford Council. It's about what Oxford Council have been doing in court in order to curb the service apartment operators in the area. So it says a council has won a planning appeal banning the use of a property for short lets, considered a landmark case which may lead to widespread curbs on Airbnb style lettings. It goes on to say in July 2019, Oxford Council issued a planning enforcement notice against the owner of a property being used as a short let. This followed a complaint from a local resident that they are experiencing antisocial behavior and nuisance from the property. The owner appealed to the planning inspectorate, which has now dismissed the appeal and required the owner to stop using it as a short let from this month. The council is calling for the short let landlords to apply for planning change of use before it takes action against other properties in the city. It is also calling for effective government regulation of the sector. So guys, look, this article goes on and on and on. Again, if you want to find this article yourself, go into the description of this video. The link should be there already. If the link isn't there, we'll get the link up by the time we get off the live session. So guys, this information is out there, what's happening in terms of the market. You just have to have your fingers, on the pulse of what's going on so you can keep up to date with all of the information. But this is quite interesting because what's actually happening here is if the Oxford Council have their way, you're going to see a big change in what's basically taking place in terms of the property field, because obviously people are going to start to see that service apartment operators, the majority of them, are going to have to stop operating the way they've been operating. So that was a bit of news I wanted to share with you guys. I really wanted you guys to be up to date on that, because again, if you're operating service apartments, I don't want you to be, the person who's not up to date with what's actually going on. You need to stay up to date in your property business with all of the news that's taking place as and when it's taking place, because that is going to massively help you. Now, another piece of news that recently came out, again, I think this is very, very important for people to kind of connect with, understand what's going on, and realize that there is change happening in the property sector. We have one of the chancellors who's recently announced that basically they are planning to extend, well, they're not planning to, they are extending the eviction holiday. So most of you who've been following the Impact Show over the last number of weeks, you'll know we first shared about the eviction holiday when it was being proposed and then when it was enforced. This says press release. Okay, Jenrick, and basically for those of you who don't know, Jenrick is effectively Robert Jenrick, who is the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government in the UK. Okay, so he extends the eviction holiday for an additional 4 weeks, which obviously is an additional month. So it says here on the article, Jenrick extends ban on evictions and notice periods. The ban on evictions extended for another 4 weeks, and new 6-month notice periods to be in place until at least 31st of March 2021. Now, the reason this is interesting is because what this is going to basically do is mean that people have to give somebody 6 months notice, half of a year. They have to let someone know that they are going to evict them. Now, the reason why this is powerful is because if you are a landlord who is not currently getting rent and you need to give 6 months notice, that could effectively leave you for half of a year without getting rent. So if that's not a blow, I don't know what is. I'll read a few more sound bites from the article before we jump into the callers on the line. It says ban on evictions continues for 4 weeks, taking the total ban to 6 months. Okay, it says new 6 months notice periods to be in place until at least the 31st of March 2021. It says once eviction hearings restart, the judiciary will carefully prioritize the most serious cases, including those involving antisocial behavior and domestic abuse. Now, I want you to take that and keep that in mind, okay? Because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just say, oh, I'm not getting my rent, because for most landlords, it's all about money. I'm not getting my rent. I need this tenant out. It's a priority case. The government have said what they are deeming as priority cases. I'll read the last soundbite I'm sharing of this article again. Once eviction hearings restart, the judiciary will carefully prioritize the most serious cases, including those involving antisocial behavior and domestic abuse. Okay, so I want you to think about that. If you end up in that position where you have tenants who you are trying to evict, if you have tenants who you're trying to, help move on, don't just think the best thing to do is to just say you're not getting your rent. If there are other circumstances around what's going on, try to tap into those circumstances, because that may be of benefit to you. All right, so that's news covered. Check. All right, Facebook questions covered. Hope the Facebook community are going to be showing me some love as a result of me bringing the Facebook stuff here on YouTube. Side by side of that, if you are watching this and getting value, hit the like. Feel free to subscribe, become a part of our community. All right, guys. It might mean nothing to you to press the like button, but let me tell you something. When you press that like button, you're telling the whole YouTube world this is good content. And by you doing that, you are actually helping YouTube to push this content to more people. And the reason this needs to get pushed to more people is because that helps us move forward in our purpose and share with more people what's going on. So without further ado, let's switch the phone lines on. And as we switch the phone lines on, you guys will be able to come through. Like I said, right here or right there. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell. Let's know that you are part of what we're doing. and let's jump on the phone lines and see if we can help some people, some of the callers for today. Let's see what we can do. Okay, let's see who our first caller is tonight. We have mobile number 762. So let's jump in here. Good evening, caller 762. Let's hope we get that audio today. Which headphones are we going to be in? Caller 762. Okay, caller 762 just dropped off, which doesn't help. Let's see if we can jump on to the next caller. We have 706. See if we can get caller 706 on. Okay, caller 706 just dropped off as well. Extremely helpful. All right, so we've got the two callers who've just dropped off. So let me just make sure we don't have any other callers before I just jump straight back into the content for tonight. And guys, those of you on YouTube who are watching this live, if you've got specific questions, put your questions through into the chat box. Let's see if we can answer your questions as well. We are here for you guys. Okay, let me see if I can put this to the right setting. Excellent. All right, I think that's all done. All right, so I think it was just the two callers that had called in. So all good and up to date. All right, so we've answered the Facebook questions. We've checked in with the callers, and also we've covered the news. I'm wondering if there's anything else that we had on which needed to be done for tonight's show. Let me check quickly. All right, good stuff. Well, let's just jump straight back into the article that I shared with you guys a moment ago about the eviction holidays. And I can share with you guys a bit more of my views on that so you guys can see exactly what this means for us. So this is a .gov publication. So this is something that is out there, you know, and again, it's not just, like I said before, it's not just Samuel's views. This is what's going on in the government right now. I'll scroll down so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's the article published yesterday, similar to the other article that I spoke about a moment ago. Here's the three kind of snippets that I took out, and let's go through the rest. It goes, renters affected by the coronavirus will continue to be protected after the government extended the ban on evictions for another 4 weeks, meaning in total, no legal evictions will take place for 6 months. Housing Secretary Robert Jenrick has announced today, 21st of August 2020, so yesterday at the time of this recording, the government also intends to give tenants greater protection from eviction over the winter by requiring landlords to provide tenants with 6 months notice in all, bar those cases raising other serious issues, such as those involving antisocial behavior and domestic abuse perpetrators. It goes on to say until at least the end of March. So obviously, we've spoken, I don't think it was episode 18, I think it was episode 17, two episodes ago, we spoke about the new change in terms of stamp duty. So obviously, a lot of investors are getting happy. Oh, I don't have to pay as much stamp duty, so they're happy to shift on in that regard. But what we have to bear in mind is, although the stamp duty may have reduced, what's actually happening now is obviously the ability to evict has also now come into play. So this is just stuff we have to bear in mind, because if we don't bear that in mind, this could come back to bite you. I'll read one more paragraph. I think we've got a caller calling back in, and then we'll check in with the caller who's calling in. The government will keep these measures under review with decisions guided by the latest public health advice. Last two paragraphs, when courts do resume eviction hearings, they will carefully prioritize the most egregious cases, interesting word, ensuring landlords are able to progress the most serious cases. It goes on to say, such as those involving antisocial behavior and other crimes, as well as where landlords have not received rent for over a year and would otherwise face manageable debts. The last paragraph I'm reading, it says the government has taken unprecedented action to support renters during this pandemic, preventing people getting into financial hardship and helping businesses to pay salaries, meaning no tenants have been evicted since the start. Now, I guess what I'd say is no tenants have been legally evicted because obviously there's been an eviction holiday, and no tenants have been evicted through means of the court system, the judicial system, which again is very, very important to, I guess, make mention of. But look, for you guys to just bear that in mind, one thing to appreciate is right now there is an extension to the evictions, and it's something we need to take extremely seriously. All right, so guys, I'm gonna jump on the phone line, see if we can hear the caller, and then from there give you guys a few other announcements before we wrap up, and I'll also jump in the chat before we wrap up just to make sure I can hear exactly what's happening. So let's see who is in or on the line. Okay, this is weird. Let's see if we can get the caller in. Good evening, caller 762. See if it's coming through the other headphones like it did last week. Good evening, is that caller 762? Okay, we're not getting that through. So let me try and change how we're listening to this, and that should hopefully help. Good evening, caller 762. We have you on, and you should be coming through. We can't hear you yet, though. Can you hear me? Guys, if you are calling in, if you're someone calling in, let me know in the chat if you can hear me through the phone, because presently I cannot hear anyone through the phone. Caller 762. I know the audio is working on the system because I can see it working on the system, but I can't seem to hear anybody currently. Okay, that's extremely weird. Okay, caller 762, you've been routed through. I can see your call's active, but I can't hear anything you're saying yet for some reason. So guys, let me know in the chat if you can hear me. If you're the caller and you can actually hear me, let me know in the chat that you can hear me, and then hopefully we'll be able to troubleshoot this problem. Okay. I'm not sure why the call's not coming through. It should be. See if this helps. Okay, caller 762, you're unmuted. We cannot hear you, but we should be able to hear you. I don't know why we can't hear you. Okay. Okay, so this is Yogesh. I can see in the chat, Yogesh, he said he's on the call. He can hear me fine. So Yogesh, when you say you can hear me fine, can you hear me through the phone, or you can only hear me through the YouTube? It's a bit weird. Usually this goes through straight away. Okay, so all the callers who are on should be able to be heard, but for some reason it's not. Okay, so Yogesh can hear me through the phone, but I can't hear him through the phone. So that is a bit strange. All right. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure if the audio is messing up today. But like I said, we got both headphones on, and for some reason it's not coming through. Give me one moment. Let me see if I can change the audio channel. Maybe that will help. We should be able to get you hopefully now. Yogesh? No, nothing yet. Hello? Okay, it's not coming through at all. So I'm not sure why that is. Let me try and unmute the second caller and see if that helps. Tech, the joys of tech, guys. Okay, still not getting anything through as well. Alright guys, so not sure why that's not coming through. Have tried to change a few things around, but for some reason it's not coming through. So I'm not let me give it one more try, and then I guess Yogesh can send it through the chat. Okay, Yogesh, do you want to try one more time on the phone? On the mobile phone, 762. This is really strange. I can hear you now as well. Wow, the joys. Yeah, I can hear you perfectly through the phone. The joys of technology. The joys of technology. All right, cool. So give me one moment, Yogesh. Just confirm for me you're happy for everybody to hear what you're going to share, and you're also happy for them to hear what I'm going to share with you as well. And then I will basically unmute you for the YouTube world to hear also. So you happy for me to do that? Excellent, excellent, excellent. So let's unmute Yogesh, and hopefully you guys should be able to hear Yogesh as well. All right, so Yogesh, go for it. What is your question for today's show? Yeah. 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 Okay, good stuff. So Yogesh has asked a bit of a fully loaded question. There's three parts to his question, but the primary question is effectively it's all about working with property, working with investors who are going to put money into your deals. Just confirm with me, Yogesh. The first part of the question is how do you prioritize basically how do you find the investors? Second part of the question was how do you speak to them in terms of like kind of wording and language I kind of picked up from you. That was what you was asking. Third part of your question was really around how do you follow up? And then there was kind of like a fourth part as well, which you were basically saying how do you answer questions such as what is your interest rate? Is that all a good summary of what you've asked? All right, and security as well. All right, excellent. So, obviously, all of this stuff depends on what you're doing. And when I say what you're doing, I mean what kind of project you're doing, what you're offering in terms of your project, etc., etc. So that's when I say in terms of what you're doing, that's what I mean by that. It just all depends on what you're doing. So, First, first point of call in terms of your question. And guys, again, like I've said before, hit like, hit subscribe, share the content, let other people know that this is valuable content for the YouTube community. So, first part of the question, in terms of, how do you find those investors? The first thing is, I would encourage people to go and find people who they know or they feel will be able to know, like, and trust them. So how do you find people that you believe are going to be able to know, like, and trust you? Well, you do that by going to find people who resonate with yourself. So people who have, similar interests to you, people that do similar things to you. So again, if you like horse riding, I'm into horse riding, then, by you frequenting yourself at country clubs where people do horse riding, play polo, for example, then you put yourself in a predicament where you can start to engage with those people. Obviously, those of you who know, last 3 years, I was hosting a networking event, one of the largest networking events in the UK. So that was a key place where I was meeting people. And even though I was hosting that networking event, I would still attend other networking events. Both those I would be speaking at and those I'd just be attending in order to engage and network with other people. So through means of engaging with networking events, again, that's a great way to meet these people. So transitioning to your second question, and I'll even say this as well, private members clubs, okay? A lot of people don't think about these as being useful anymore. I was invited to speak at a private members club just a couple of weeks back. I think it wasn't even as far as 2 weeks ago. And at the private members club that I spoke at recently, that was one of the reasons I was actually speaking at the event, because I thought to myself, well, hold on a minute. If I'm at a private members club, I'm in a great place, a great environment in order to meet people who are interested in investing their money. So again, private members clubs, networking events, etc., etc. I'd say all of those should be utilized in order to move forward in your acquisition or finding investors, engaging and frequenting with investors. That's first. Second part of your question, you basically asked about the language you use when speaking to them. Now, I'm going to be, I don't know if this is different to other people because I don't really hear other people speak about how to work with investors a lot. But what I'd say to you is, for myself, I try to speak to investors how I would want to be spoken to myself. And I'm going to be very, very honest with you. That's my approach. My approach is not some, those of you who've seen me present before, I don't practice NLP, hypnosis, a whole lot of all of that stuff. Again, if that's what you do, that's what you do. There's no judgment here. But what I'm saying is that's not me. So because I'm not into all of the neuro-linguistic programming, for those of you who do not know what NLP stands for, you can go and Google that and find out what I'm talking about. But because I'm not into NLP and all of that stuff, I use that, if I'm going to be totally honest, the Bible as my framework of how I work with people, how I engage with people, how I deal with people. And in the Bible, it says a very simple verse. It says, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. So because of that, that's how I engage with people, including investors, including any human being that I come across. What I want to do is I want to give to that person an opportunity. I want to give them value. And that's because I want people to give me an opportunity. I want people to give me value. So in terms of the language I use, I use the same language that I speak on the live show with, the same language that I engage with my coaching clients with, the same language that I'll speak in my Facebook videos, on my Facebook lives, on my YouTube show, when I do YouTube videos. It's always the same. Like with Samuel, you know what you're going to get. And the reason you know what you're going to get is because that's a central tenet to me. I need to be able to share with people the value that I have and just be transparent, because the worst thing you can do, especially with an investor, someone whose money you're holding or managing, is present yourself as someone day one and they quickly find out on day 2, day 3, day 64 that you're somebody else. And that's something you don't want to do. You don't want to deceive people. Let me put it that way. And for me personally, like, I'm an individual who's very big on making sure I'm not deceiving people. Like in the Bible, there's a very powerful verse which I really like. It says that you should abstain from every appearance of evil. And if you really take that to the heart, what that basically means is you should stay away from even looking like you're doing something wrong. Okay, you should stay away from even looking like you're doing something wrong. So that's a breakdown, a kind of maybe layman's interpretation of that Bible verse. But it's because of things like that I've read and that I believe in and I hold true to as kind of central tenets and integral principles that I live by, that in terms of working with investors, I try my best to make sure that I am the same person, who they met day one, all the way to day N, whatever that day is going to be. And again, it doesn't mean, I treat an investor how I treat my wife. No, there's, spheres of relationships, which isn't something we maybe have enough time, to talk about on this live show. But, spheres of relationships is something I speak about to my coaching clients all the time. And I always teach them and train them on that concept of spheres of relationships to be understood, so you can be more effective as you engage with your investors, with your wife, with your friends, with your family, with whoever it is. So there you go. Thank you, Nana. See your comment. Thank you for your comment in the chat. All right, so that's the second part of your question, Yogesh, how to speak to them. Third part, we were touching on how you start to answer questions such as, what interest rate do you offer? And also you mentioned about security. So that was the really real part of your question where I meant it really depends on what you're doing. And what I mean by that is, I've done rent-to-rent projects where somebody has given us £5,000 to fund that rent-to-rent deal. Now, £5,000 is not the largest amount of money. Now, in that case, I'm not going to take my residential home and put a second charge on my residential home for someone who's given our business £5,000 or given me personally £5,000. That's not going to happen. We've also had investors who have pledged up to £100,000. You know, so the point I'm making is it depends on what you're doing. It depends on how much they're pledging. It depends on what that amount of funds means to you, and it also depends on what that amount of funds bears in terms of your business. So if your business is not worth £100,000 and someone's willing to lend you £100,000, then you need to start to ask yourself, well, what is a justifiable security for that individual? And again, I'm not saying it just for you to think about for them. I'm also saying it for you to think about for you. I.e., if you know your business isn't worth 100,000, but someone's going to give you 100,000, then you might need to give them what a lot of investors use, which is a personal guarantee, where you're basically saying, look, if my business can't pay you back your 100,000, I personally will pay you back your 100,000, and I can prove I can do that because I've got 12 properties with £50,000 equity in each of them, based on their last RIC surveys, which all took place in the last 12 months. So, it depends on your current predicament. It depends on the particular transaction. It depends on the amount of money that you're actually loaning, lending, or joint venturing with. But the reality is it needs to make sense to you as the investor, and it definitely needs to make sense to them as the person investing their funds passively or even actively. Now, another thing I'll share with you on this as well, just to give a bit of more added value and a bit of context as well for you, Yogesh, in this regard, and this is for anyone who's watching this, who's thinking about using investors' money. This is just some nuggets of care that you should potentially take. When you're dealing with people who are lending you their money, what you have to understand is, I would encourage you to make sure that the person is right for you. Okay, now some people are going to listen to this and I can hear the voice in the back of your head saying, it don't matter. Like, if someone's giving me money, I don't care if they're right for me. Listen, let me tell you something. It matters if they're right for you. Okay, it really matters. And I'll share with you guys a little story so you understand. This is just from my experience. So a number of years ago, I took on 2 investors at the same time for a particular property project we were doing. Property project was very successful, paid the 2 people back with a month in advance, a month before the deadline on our agreement. And we paid them the full interest of the whole 12 months. It was a 12-month loan. We paid them back in month 11 with the 100% interest rate that we basically, with 100% of the interest rate that we said we was going to pay them back. Then, I think a couple of months later, after we had finished that transaction, someone else basically invested in one of the projects that I was doing. And to be honest with you, I'm going to be very, very transparent. That to date, has been the worst experience of working with someone's funds I've ever had. And let me tell you what basically happened. The person gave us the money to do the project. We went and done the project. The project was going extremely successful. But from as early as, I think it was 2 months before the deadline on our contract where we were supposed to pay the individual back, the individual started reaching out to me, phoning me on a regular basis, asking me for money. Oh, how's the project going? Are we gonna be on time? Are we gonna, can I get my money? How's it gonna go? And it's like, I've got no problem with someone asking me how a project's going that their money's invested in. But my real challenge was the fact that, in my opinion, the person was nagging. Okay, the person was nagging. Now, we met the deadline, we gave the person their money back, with their interest, with 100% of their interest as promised. And the funniest thing is, after the situation, it was maybe about 4 or 5 days after the situation, I was bugging out. Okay, and I'm gonna be really real with you guys. I was bugging out. I was saying to my wife, like, why was this guy hounding us? Like, why were we being hounded for 2 whole months about something which we had under control? And when they asked first time, is it under control? We said, yes, under control. Like, there's no problem. And then my wife said to me, you do know that individual knows the other 2 individuals who invested with you where you paid a whole month early. And I was like, okay, but even though they know them, but then for me, the penny dropped. So my wife was trying to help me understand that, look, their expectations might have been unfounded based on my ability to pay another group of people back early. So this individual may have expected to be paid back early. And one of the things I don't like doing is I don't like assuming. So after a while, I did reach out to the individual and just say to them, look, like, what was the problem? You know, and they basically said to me that they needed the money at the time. They were going through a few things. So again, you know, I'm not here to make the judgment calls, but like I said to you, to date, that has been kind of like my most uncomfortable experience using other people's money, just because I went into it believing I was working with a particular kind of person, and before the end of the process, I very quickly found out that if I knew that that would have been the experience at the end, I wouldn't have loaned the money from that individual in the first place. I would have looked for another investor, or just gone back to the first two investors or one of those investors to jump in on another deal. So guys, again, that's just a bit of advice. You know, take care. Don't just think, oh, someone's offering me their money, therefore I need it, and therefore I'm going to take it. So Yogesh, I hope that answers your questions. I hope you've got some insights there that you can use and move forward with additionally as well. Yeah. Hello, Yogesh. Have we still got Yogesh on, or has he dropped off? All right, let me check if we've got another caller on, and then we're going to jump into our last call. All right, so all good. Hopefully Yogesh heard that, and hopefully that will help him. All right, so we have got another caller on, 706. And then I'll jump into the chat, and then I'll give you guys a free gift because we hit 250 subscribers. And again, guys, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you haven't hit subscribe, hit subscribe. Let the YouTube world know what's happening. If you haven't hit like, and let the YouTube world know this is some good content. All right, so the other caller 706, we can't seem to hear you. I can see that you are connected on our side, but again, can't hear you. So I'm not really sure what's happening with our callers today, but it is all good, all good, all good. All right, guys, so let me jump into the chat. Let me see what you guys have been saying, and then from there, we will jump straight back into me giving you guys a free gift for today. And then after the free gift, we'll be saying sayonara. All right. Okay, so we got Aris who says, oi, oi, boss man. Thank you for that. Okay, are there phone calls today? Yes, as we've seen. Israel says cash flow. And I know that's probably for when we was talking earlier on about you need to know your target, what you're actually trying to do. Yogesh asked the question, which site are these questions posted in, please? All right, Yogesh, so all of that's in the description of the video, or in the description of the video. If you go into any of our videos, in the description, we got our Facebook group, the link for you to get into that. We've got the webinar link. We've got the sourcing blueprint link. We've got links to the articles we go through. Everything's in the description. We put everything in the description because we want you guys to be fully prepared with any of the information that we are giving out. So everything should be in the description for you to take full advantage of. All right, let me keep looking. Okay, so this was the cool stuff. Okay, and how do you speak to potential investors? Excellent, answer that question. Then Nana's question, that's good. Thank you, Sister Nana. And then we had, okay, so Yogesh is saying I couldn't hear him. No, I wasn't able to hear you at the end, Yogesh. And we've got Osa who says good and fantastic value always. Thank you very much, Osa. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. We appreciate all of you subscribers. Like I said at the beginning, thank you guys. 250 subscribers and counting. All right. We want to hit 1,000. Okay. That's the goal. 1,000 subscribers. That's the goal we're setting today. So how are we going to do that? You guys are going to share the content. You guys are going to let us know. You guys are going to take the Impact Show to the world. So let people know about the show. Let people know you're getting value. Let people know what's happening here. All right. All right. Excellent. Okay, so Yogesh has written a few comments, but I don't get them fully. Yogesh, if you can expand on that, please. He says his questions for clarification was in his contact list. Who do he? Oh, okay. And then he says the link would be useful on the Facebook group. And then he says he will help me get to 1,000. All right. So look, if you're gonna help us get to 1,000, Yogesh, we are looking forward to it. Thank you ever so much. We appreciate that. But yeah, like I said, Yogesh, I've said it several times. In the description of this video, you'll be able to get the link to the Facebook group. The link to the Facebook group is in the description, always in the description. Like we said, guys, participate in subscribing, liking, hitting the bell notification so we can get to that 1,000 subscribers and keep moving forward in our Facebook community. Now, what I decided to do for our key resource in today's show, episode 19, the show before the 20th episode, is give you guys a free link to an audio book. All right, and this is an audio book which is going to help you understand how to win in the sport of business. Okay, this is the audio book written or narrated, or it's written. The original book was written by Mark Cuban. Most of you know who Mark Cuban is. He is the director, he is the owner of the Mavericks, which is an American sports team, and he is, I believe he's already a billionaire. So, you know, Mark Cuban is someone that many people look up to as a business mogul, and we are going to give you his audiobook absolutely free. All you need to do is go to the link which is right at the bottom of the banner here, www.impactproperties.co.uk/how to win. Okay, and if you go to that link /how to win, impactproperties.co.uk /how to win, you will be able to get a free 30-day subscription to Audible, and this audio book will be given to you absolutely free. Whether you decide to keep the Audible subscription or delete the Audible subscription, you will be charged nothing and you will still keep the book. So head on over to the link impactproperties.co.uk /how to win and go get your free audio book for being one of the massive, amazing, brilliant subscribers that we have had on the Impact Show and taking our channel up to 250 subscribers and beyond. So that's the resource that we're throwing out today, guys. Go get that resource and take full advantage of what is going on. Now, last but not least, before we end the show, what I want to say to you is go and get the Sourcing Blueprint ebook if you haven't already. www.sourcingblueprint.com. Take full advantage of that ebook. It will help you understand how to source property deals. And side by side with that, if you haven't already participated in our webinar, up and coming webinar on Monday, www.impactproperties.co.uk /webinar, where we are going to be speaking to you about how to take advantage in this current property climate. Guys, I am your host, Samuel I Can Win. It has been an absolute pleasure to give you guys the value on tonight's show, and I'm looking forward because next episode is episode 20, and I'm sure we're going to have a few gifts for you guys. Thank you for making the show, the channel, and everything we do such a great pleasure. And guys, happy investing.